what I want to go through is going to be really helpful with what we've been dealing with, and it's been crazy. I keep describing to Debbie and Javier lately that it feels like we're playing like the whack-a-mole game a little bit, where all of a sudden there's one person who goes out, and then like another one comes back. And whether it's just there's been 100 different reasons and different things, but we've been almost like cut in half, like as a community. Kind of crazy, right? And it makes you wonder, like, what in the world is going on here? And I had this day. It was really intense on, I don't know if it was Tuesday, maybe it was, but I got here for work, and first off, we're down personnel, when it comes to prepping food. And it ended up being a fairly busy day. But then on top of that, our air conditioner went out, and then our walk-in cooler went out, and then our freezer wasn't holding temperature. Our ice machine went out, and it was like miserably hot here, and there was just a ton to contend with spiritually too. And it was there was this feeling that like made it so it would have been very easy just to have that attitude of, can anything else go wrong? Like, can I come up with a few scenarios? Maybe is there anything else that could go wrong here? And it was just one of those days. We had a catering order that morning too, and it was just yeah, we had a ton of, yeah, there was just a lot. There was a lot going on. It just felt like we're being pulled from all these different fronts. And I know I had to like make a personal decision inside of myself, because it's like, my gosh, like everything seems to be going wrong. And it's in the midst of a time too where we have a lot of preparation to do even for next week. So it's like there are so many different things that were pulling on me, and it's like, well, what am I going to do with this? Like, how do I want to respond to this right now? I can see everything as a problem and have an attitude that I just need to fix this or I just need to fix that, and then I can maybe find some comfort, or I'll be okay when all these problems go away. And then you just end up willing things to happen a certain way, and that never really works out. And in the midst of that, there was this feeling that was starting to rise up inside of me. And I want to frame it that way because I know it had nothing to do with me. Because there was this spirit that was there that was just like, Mike, this is good. Like, this is really good that all these things are happening. And then all of a sudden, I found myself in this place of talking to God and just saying, Lord, I almost don't want you to take it away. And it's a little bit of a different attitude. It was like, well, here's a moment where we're being stretched, or in this case, I'm personally being stretched, but there was this spirit that just kept rising up inside of me like, this is good. And not in I'm going to say a false pride kind of way, or a self-empowering, or like we all just had a really good pep talk in the locker room and now we're going to go storm the field kind of way. And then the second you get knocked back a few feet, you're defeated and depressed. But in a really quiet, like sobering kind of way. It's just like, this is good. This is good. And I kept thinking about how God has given us so many prophetic words about the things to come. And think about it for a moment. If you have a destiny with Him, and the words that God has given us come to pass, where some really devastating things come to this region, what's that going to look like? And what kind of things do we need to be going through? And I started thinking about that, and it was just like, okay, this day that was really intense and nothing more could have gone wrong than did go wrong turned into this is small potatoes, like, what's the big deal kind of day. And that's a pretty big shift, I would say. It was definitely a uncomfortable time period, but when put in perspective, it was just like, it's really not that big of a deal. So what? All these things are happening, and we seem a little undone right now, but in the big scope of things, it's, well, we're on the salvation journey right now, and we're here so we can learn how to grow closer to Him. And I think it's really important that as we face challenges or just whatever difficulties, if it's your turn. I mean, we have somebody who's in the ER right now. We have somebody who just walked out of the ER because they couldn't get in time. We have somebody who just finished their time in an ER a couple days ago. That's kind of crazy, don't you think? Why are we going through all this stuff? Maybe in God's mind, we're getting close to it being crunch time. And there's some rapid growth or some rapid acceleration that He wants to be happening in people's process. And the question really comes down to is, when things are starting to look bad, are you taking advantage of it? Are you looking at some of the struggles that you're facing and just willing them to go away and say, I'm really uncomfortable right now and life really stinks and I can't believe I'm facing this right now? Or we embracing it, like taking advantage of it? I'm really grateful because, left to my own devices, my own sin nature, I would have gone 100 different ways, and appreciating the day wasn't one of them. There was a lot of different things that I would have gone to or had to face, and that just wasn't it. And even to the point that I purposed my heart in a place of just, I don't even really want to talk about it that much. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to vent that all this stuff is going on. It just is what it is. This is what it looks like to be me. And here's an opportunity to be a little more patient and just really let go of control and let Him do what He's doing. And there's been challenges that everybody here has had to face in different ways, and who knows, tomorrow might be your turn. But that's what it's been lately. It's been the whack-a-mole game. One person comes back, another person goes out. It's just our testing season that I think we've been going through for a while, and I thought it would really serve us to do a service and just think for a moment, are you taking advantage of it? Are you escaping it? Or are you taking advantage of it? Because that's the tendency, isn't it? to be in that moment, and we know all the teachings and we know the revelation. I don't want to change my circumstances. We want to change our view of our circumstances. We're going through a salvation process. We're on a pilgrimage. We have a lot of lingo, sayings, words to help us get to this place, to keep our eye on the prize. Remember, I'm trying to develop more in union with Christ, but what about when everything seems like it's not going right? Do you still remember that? Do you still uphold that and even be in a place where you can get in touch with Jesus's nature inside of you, that in a sobering kind of way, you can appreciate whatever struggle you have because you know that it's accomplishing something inside of you that you want done. He's doing something. And I don't want to miss it. I don't want to have this season that we're going through as a group and miss it. Be unspiritual in our minds and not really realize that there's something that he's bringing us through right now. And from what I understand about God, he's not a God of suffering. He doesn't find joy in just causing pain, whether that's physical pain or emotional pain, spiritual pain. If there's something that we're going through, then he has a good reason for why we're going through it. And if that's the case, are you running away trying to escape it, or are you embracing it? We've done messages like this 100 times over in different ways, different subject matters. There's nothing new that we're talking about here. But in the application part of it, are you doing it? Are you taking advantage of it? Are you looking at it as an opportunity, or just looking at God saying, well, why are you doing this? Surely the God of the universe would never, ever want me to be uncomfortable. But that's just not true. It's just a lie. So I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion here and get to a place as a group of just some sobriety. Can we get there? Can we get quiet and just embrace what God is doing and have that attitude? Because it should lead us to a really humble place, a really sober place, but also realize that if he's bringing you through these things, it tells you there's things that he sees as important to purge from your heart. Maybe you can even say, is a testimony to the kind of destiny that you have, and he needs you ready for it. Can I just hear a couple comments? Like, which way do you think you're leaning in whatever you might be facing or dealing with inside of yourself? Anybody want to start us off? Go ahead. You want to use the... I'm probably not going to leave this public, but I have it right now public, so Sylvia can hear it and Kaylee in the back.
Right now, I believe I'm kind of leaning in the right place.
Good.
Like, not succeeding there, but I think a lot of things like going out to Michigan and the things that have been happening the last 2-3 weeks, and a lot about the messages that we've been hitting on, has helped me to get in a place to see that. I've also had reviews and talking to different people and stuff, some of my department managers, and I've had to have discussions. That's kind of why I sent you that thing yesterday, because I sent that to one of my department managers, and I just said, iron sharpens irons, and this is the way we get through life. And so it's been on my mind lately, because, there was a big period of time where I was trying to escape everything. I was like, I'm done, and but I've seen it, and I think the other reason why it's kind of on the front or part of my mind is what I see in the workers at work and stuff like that. Everybody's trying to escape right now. Everybody. Nobody wants to own anything. Everybody wants the easy way through. They see everything as entitled, and it's hard not to take on that same kind of view. And I have to keep myself in that position of just saying, but that's not who you are. That's not what God is doing in your life. And so, as hard as it is, sometimes I feel like there are times, like even this morning, it felt like there was some major pressure coming against me to want to feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped to go back to the tools that we've talked about. Just that this can totally not be me. It could be somebody else in the house. It could be nobody in the house. It could be work. It could be somebody projecting, but it doesn't matter. What am I going to do? Am I going to sit under this, or am I going to rise above it?
Yeah.
With God's help and stuff like that. So with some prayer and stuff like that, I felt it. But I think it has much more to do about the messages that we've been getting lately have helped me to see that and
Mm-hmm.
really do that and really meditate on that, because I think
Yeah.
there's just been a lot of good things lately that we've talked about, and I think it's helped us to keep our eyes on that prize, like what you brought up even on Thursday night. Sometimes we got to kind of back out of all the stuff and not get so lost in it and see, wait a minute, what is God doing? And it kind of brings a little excitement to it. It kind of brings like, hey, well then something's
Something's
happening.
going on here.
Right.
Yeah.
So, this is good, because I feel like we've been kind of for a long time. So the shaking up is forcing us to see things about ourselves, and it's exposing things in me and stuff like that I have to look at. And I think it's kind of making me get excited about getting involved again like that. So
Yeah.
it's been good in that way.
Good.
And not perfect or anything else like that, but I think there's some of that going on right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. There was the teaching I was watching a recording of yesterday, and maybe I'll play it for you guys at the end. I'll get the tail end of it, but it was I want to say it's called The Importance of Priorities. They did it maybe 2 months ago on a Sunday night. And in there, they put this clip from the Chosen episode, and you see all the disciples sitting around a fire, and they get to this place where they just start like bickering. You can say they're kind of arguing, starting to divide from each other, and obviously this is a fictional plot that they made up. And while this is all happening, Jesus is there ministering to people. And it has it set where that morning they walked 4 hours to get to the town that they were in. And then from the morning that he got there, he was ministering to people until sundown. And you could see some of the disciples were getting to this place of almost getting angry with him. Like, how long is he going to do this for? There was even a discussion that went on where one of them said, I'm really upset right now because all these people, they're just coming because they want to be healed, not because they want to follow him. And he was like starting to get upset. Like, I don't like that all these people are here and they're just insisting on wanting to be healed. And you could just see some of their own personal feelings were coming out, and it led to a bad place of just them starting to confront each other, but not in a spiritual good way. And there was just divisions that were starting to come. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of them arguing, you see Jesus come and he walks by. And I forget, he just says something like, good night, guys, or it's like really short, and you could just hear him groaning. Like, he's not complaining, he's really sweet still, and he says, good night, guys, but you can just hear like him groaning. And they do such a good job in the show of giving you the effect of what he just went through and how totally exhausted his body is from spending all day ministering to people. And he just goes and he lays down, and just as Jesus is walking by, they all just stare at him, say good night, and they stop their arguing. All of a sudden, there was this shift that went from seeing everything in light of how they felt and how it made them feel to here's a guy who just spent all day giving of himself to other people that were in need after walking hours and hours, and he's not complaining. He's just going about to go to bed after a good day's work. And you could tell it was really humbling. And it's such a good visual to see. I'll play it at the end, but there was this little clip of it in the priorities teaching that I watched, and I was just sitting here on the floor just kind of listening to the teaching on my phone, praying a little bit, and it just like broke something inside of me in a way, seeing him walk back, and it made me think like, oh my gosh, you did that for me. You live this lifetime of just being exhausted and broken, physically, and especially the contrast of what him being in heaven to coming here. I mean, when do you feel something the worst? It's when there's a big contrast. Might be 90 degrees outside, and you might not realize how horrible it is until you go into a 40-degree cooler and you have some relief. It's like, wow, no, it's really bad outside. It's really bad. You have the contrast. Yeah, the contrast of just heaven. No pain, no suffering, no just agony of what it looks like to be in this world, being in flesh, being clothed in flesh, not in a celestial body without limitations. And he just suffered. He was just constantly abused, constantly starving, just uncomfortable in his body. I mean, we don't read scriptures about it, but we hear, well, they walked to this town to this town. Well, how many blisters were on the bottom of his feet while he walked? How much water do you think they had? Think they had a really nice, survival backpack that they brought with them? These big canteens full of water? Plentiful food all the time? Not at all. It just really struck me. It was like, my gosh, Lord, you did that for me. He did that for you so that we could have a chance to have his spirit living inside of us. And then in the midst of this unbelievable sacrifice that he did, we have a day where the AC goes out and we're sweating a lot more than usual, and it's like, life sucks, take me now. And it's like, really? We we're that consumed by our own feelings and how everything affects us. I'm sorry to laugh, but it's true. We just can't even relate to what he went through. And I just want to have a little bit of sobriety, I guess, for his sacrifice and how much he suffered and how much he gave of himself, because it should inspire us to look forward to some of those moments to say, Lord, everything's not going wrong today. There's a lot of goodness that is happening today. Like, for instance, that day that I was talking about, there was this guy who was an air conditioning guy from out of state that Phil knew, who was willing to spend multiple phone calls with me to diagnose an issue, and actually was the reason our walk-in cooler got fixed in the first place. Praise God for that. There was a good thing that was happening a certain day. We had breath in our bodies that day. There's a lot of really incredible things that have been happening, but sometimes when we get so absorbed in how everything affects us, we forget to see all the good, and we just see the bad, and the bad is absolutely nothing compared to what he went through. It just left me in this place of, like, I don't know any way to say it, but like, how dare us sometimes, to look at some of the petty things that we go through and make such a mountain out of them. When there he was sacrificing everything when he didn't have to, putting himself in a horribly uncomfortable position. Why? So that we could be forgiven, so that he can pour out his spirit, so we can have that spirit living inside of us. So what? Now that spirit can live in our bodies and suffer in here too? It's like, my gosh, there was nothing like pleasant about that. We were not the most lovable creatures in the world. But he like gave himself anyways. For what? So he could live inside of here and cleanse us from head to toe. And I mean, when you look at it that way, doesn't it leave you in that place like, God forbid, how dare I make such a big deal about such small things, when also I can take comfort in the fact that these small things, these trivial things I'm going through, I mean, sometimes they're serious, but he's using them. We can trust him, that he's not bringing us through anything more than we can handle, and he's doing it so we can grow. He's doing it because he loves us. It's just that look in his eye in that movie when he was walking. It just like it broke something inside of me. And I don't want to be unspiritual and miss out. Not realize that there's something greater going on that he's doing. There's some bigger plans that he has for us. And I don't want to fall into just the trap of, well, this stinks. Why do I have to go through this? And then we're just so glad when the pressure goes, when maybe God is saying, well, I just had to take it away because it was causing you to go so far south and so get you so self-absorbed. I just had to like remove it because you couldn't go any further. Maybe he wanted it to go a little further. Not because he wants to cause pain to us or discomfort, but because he has something really important for you. How do you think you'd do if you had to walk 4 hours in the sun to a next town, and I'm sure uncomfortable shoes, scratchy clothes, and then just totally give of yourself for people who don't care about you, don't really care about your condition or your needs? Give of yourself all day, and then walk back and see the people that should be giving you comfort the most are fighting with each other. I think it'd be really easy in that case to walk back. Let's say you held out through the whole line of people that just needed healing and ministering to all day. It'd be easy just to trip in the self-righteous, I've been doing this all day and you guys are sitting there around a campfire just being totally consumed with self. You couldn't have like at least prayed for me or had some dinner ready or a cold glass of water or there was just so many reasons that he had to just go south and he just good night guys, we'll see you tomorrow. And then like he goes in this tent and you hear him praying and he prays this prayer like, Father, would you grant slumber to my eyes tonight? And he's just like, my gosh, like, this is a fictional account based on what we know. It's a dramatization. But we know he did all those things. And it was probably worse than the dramatization even showed. Just broke something inside of me. God forbid that we complain and look at things as if nothing's going right. That's not true. Does anyone else have any comments to share? And I'll end just showing that clip. Joe, can you pass that to Javier?
Yesterday, the message that we hear in Friday night group was an excellent message about very different of like what you're talking and how you present it today. But that was talking about the dark night of the spirit and how God put us in those dark nights where like all the comfort, all the like goosebump, all the visions, all the like revelations, all the like make me feel good disappear, and God is waiting for us to show our love to him. It's not that he is far away, he is really close to us, but he is not being the sugar daddy. He's just waiting for me. What am I going to do in those moments where I don't feel good? And when I feel then the whole hell is on top of me and nobody is like taking care of me or talking to me. It's just like, it really like brings comfort to me. It was kind of like showing, like you say, God is about to explode and to do something big. And because he's about to explode and do something big, he's taking us to the next level. That was how God explained it. It's just like God needs to bring us to the dark night in order to put us in the next level. God needs to put us in the dark night in order to cleanse us and in order to purify us. It's something that he needs to do. He needs to prove, should I love him or should I care for him just because he gave me $100 every week?
Yeah.
It's just like what is the real motives in my heart? Why am I really doing here? And kind of like you talk, well, God is putting us in this place because he loves us and he has a nature that he is willing to help everybody and not even care for himself, and he wants that nature to become our nature so we can show the world
Be something
who
different.
who he is. So when you were talking, just like really the message that we hear yesterday was like coming into my mind and say like, well, God is bringing over and over, like I'm about to do something, but before I do something, I need to like make sure that you guys are ready.
Right.
And I don't know
that was Dayton, what was it? Mystical Prayer Day 4, Part
3.
Part 3? Yeah. Cool, thanks. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Just with what everyone's talking about, it reminded me of just what I went through with COVID a few weeks ago, of just how when I first found out that I had COVID, that I really wanted to take advantage and try not to go south and try to make the most of my free time and just trying to get more spiritual, because I don't usually have all that free time to do prayer time and just get quiet. And towards the beginning, I was doing well and starting to, I think, do better in my prayer time than I had in the past. But then towards the middle of it, I started to not see much improvement in my symptoms and just starting to sink inwards and just wondering when this was going to end, and
Right.
just was getting frustrated and just sinking in to myself and seeing how things affect me, and
Yeah.
that just what we were talking about, just that eventually I was able to get out of it towards the end and start to get that clarity back. But then just as you're talking today of how it is like that whack-a-mole thing, and that we really do need to take advantage of this time, because
Yeah, there's something going on, and let's not pretend there isn't.
yeah. And so I just was relating in that sense that definitely it's not easy, but I do want to come out of this the right way, because I didn't with my COVID, and eventually was able to get back on track. But
Yeah.
yeah, I want to definitely do better this time around.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can take advantage of the time too to pray for each other and just pray that God would grant us just a spirit of sobriety, humility, just really being destiny minded, or I'm just going to say being spiritual in our outlook, to recognize him and see what he's doing. And maybe you're not that person who's facing some of those challenges, and even then you can use it to pray for other people rather than just find your own reason to be self-absorbed. Because I don't know if you guys realize this, but we're really good at finding reasons to be self-absorbed even when life is good. I know that's probably like breaking news right there, but there's a special talent that we have as a human race to just always find a reason to take things personal and be upset. So I think whether you're going through a tough time or you're not, you can use it to pray for other people and strengthen your convictions, and pray that God brings us as a community to the places that he wants us to go. So, anyone else? Dayton, you want to pass it over? That's good, thanks.
I just going off of what you said yesterday, like really struck me of just like I don't think you phrased it like this, but how I'm seeing it is like I don't want to lose like on this opportunity that we have, like to to see it as all for nothing, or to, like you said, get self-absorbed or whatever, but like to take this opportunity to let it do the work it's supposed to do, but also let it help me grow or stretch in like my capacity or whatever. And it's always been beneficial for me, and I think us as a ministry, but like when persecution happens, it always draws us closer, and like it always helps us, like, I mean, the goal, like my goal should always be to be, you know, pouring out for you guys or thinking about you guys or praying for you guys, but when persecution comes, it's in my face now.
Right.
Like like I know where Sylvia is, and it like helps me to like be there with her spiritually. Like I'm praying for her, like when I'm eating, I'm praying for her this way, or I'm praying for Phil when like this and that.
Right.
And like I should do that all the time, but when struggles happen, now it's in my face, and like I can't avoid that, and it causes me to be there with somebody else in their struggle and what they're going through. And it kind of helps keep me out of myself. Right. Not that I want anybody to have to go through hardships, but it helps me because it keeps me focused that I need to be strong for them. I can't be getting self-absorbed in my own junk. I know like back when Phil and Colleen were going through hardships, like I remember like making like a vow to myself, like now is not the time for me to like cause more spiritual junk for them to contend with.
Right.
Now is my turn to, put my big boy pants on and be strong. And I know the tools I have. I've been given a lot, and now is my chance to do what I've been trained to do, so that I can hold my own until, mom and dad come back, and
Right.
and I got to hold the house down. And I think like this is just kind of bringing up to me, like, I same with my dad, like, I had a really good opportunity to go to Michigan and kind of like get back on true north spiritually. And I feel like it's been helping me in my day-to-day life just to see things in a spiritual way, or see things for what they are and not like how it affects me. And hopefully that stays next week too. Endurance has always been a struggle of mine. Like I can get on task and I'm good for like a solid week, but then like, week 2 starts and I completely forgot what I was, working so hard to keep. And
Yeah.
I want to not do that, obviously, but I don't
And
know.
I think it's important, because when we have that attitude and then someone treats you badly, or something happens, rather than just getting upset and taking it personal, it's like, well, you know what? I can just roll with it. Like I don't need to make this about me. I can just, well, maybe they're having a hard day, or maybe they're going through something right now and I don't know about it, and I don't need to know. It's just enough to say, well, I can be Jesus to this person right now. I can be patient right now. I can not take things personal. I can just say a prayer for them, and just find a way to support. And that's the attitude. Like, unfortunately, most of the times it does take hardships to get us there, but we want to grow in that way of just always being there. I mean, that's what a community of faith is supposed to be, where we can have that attitude of like, I don't want to make things more difficult than they are right now. And there's always somebody who's the weak link in the group, and then there's people who are stronger, and we're all a different link at a different time. Sometimes we're the strong one, sometimes we're the weak one, but if you're doing okay, it's a good moment to say, okay, well, I want to take pride in the fact that, like, I really want to be reverent to my process and make sure I don't get off track, because I want to make it easier for the group to progress. And I think that's a important aspect to think about. Yeah, go ahead.
I also just liked how you brought up like contrast, and then like tying it into like the Chosen episode, because I know there's a lot of times when like I feel like I need to take a step back and realize like your life's not that bad,
Yeah. Right.
and like what you feel is I feel like in a moment, it's not all the time. It's
Right.
like it's hot. But I remember one time I was saying like I walked into a 7-Eleven and I was like, I don't look well in the heat. I look like I'm suffering, and I feel like I am or whatever. But like I walked inside and the guy was like, "Are you hot, buddy?" I was like, "Yeah, it's like 99 degrees outside or whatever." And he was like, "Oh, did you know it's 140 or 120 in India right now?" And I was like, I kind of like sat there for a second. I'm like, "Why are you saying that to me?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, like they can't even go outside. Like it's unbearable." And I like brought like the product in and I like walked back to my truck and I sat there. I'm like, can I handle 120? Like, I'm dying in 90, you know? And it was like, maybe, like, part of me, like, wanted to be upset with this guy for even saying that to me. But, like, the other part of me was like, I have no idea.
But
like,
you're right.
you're like, and just like, yeah, like I worked a 10-hour day or whatever, but like Jesus worked from sun up to sundown and gave of himself. And like when you said like he came back to his family and they're bickering, and it was like the same thing when he went to the Mount Olives or whatever, and like came back and they're sleeping. And
Like
it's
no one to find that solace in.
right, like in your hardest times, like, you know, he like they weren't there, and I'm no better than they are. And so I'm happy that you shared that, because it helps me get perspective of just like, I have no idea what it really means to like hurt, you know, like I have hardships, I guess, but really not that bad. And I sometimes I gotta just kind of get a grip and, you know, like kind of suck it up a little bit, you know, it's it's hot, or like, oh, you had a hard day. It's like, you know, like, you know, go take a shower and like come back. You know, we need you still. It's like, it's not a time to ever get inside myself. And if anything, it should be inspiration to do more, give more, try harder. And I don't know. I really like what you shared tonight. It kind of gave me some.
Good. Anyone else? Dana?
I just wanted to share just a line that you had in the notes last Saturday night that I thought it helps me to keep things in perspective. It just said, see the ministry as a child that needs to be nurtured.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I thought about that. You know, do I see it that way? Do I react that way? And when you put it in as far as a child, it's like, of course you're going to do that for your child. Yeah. You know, so I like that line. I think it keeps me kind of looking at it the right way. Just like, you know, we need to care for it. And, you know, I think, you know, Phil said in this last message or something, he goes, does it make sense that you wouldn't nurture, if you and your wife are one, does it make sense that you would purposely not nurture something that's part of you? It's hurting you to not nurture her, you know, to not do that. Or, you know, when you hit your toe or something like that and it's, you know, going off like it, of course, you know, you should feel it through your whole body.
Take care of it. Yeah,
you would take care of it, you know, and just seems to make sense. It makes perfect sense to say that, but how often we don't. Right. You know, because we're in a certain mood or a perspective or something like that. So, but anyway, I like that line, and it kind of helps me to understand. It's like when one is down, that's part of me. You know, like even not having Sylvia here, that affects everybody. And I know what it's like to be on the other end of it, where you're the one that's out there, you know, and you can't be part of something, and you want to be a part of something, and you'd much rather be a part of something than be on the outside like that. Right. So, you know, I think it is important that we continue to pray and remember that. Like this morning, even, it was like I started praying, and it was like, for this person, for that, for this person, for that, for this situation, for this, and I'm thinking, wow,
long list
there's
today.
a lot going on, you know, and we need to be doing that. So, but and the picture that helps me going through bad times is I got to remember that. When you want to get self-absorbed, you got to remember that you are yoked with Jesus, and Jesus is bringing you through that. So how far is Jesus away from you? He's on the other side of the yoke, bringing you through it. Yeah. So if he's bringing you through this, he's got an intent, a purpose, and he'll get you through it. Mm-hmm. He's going to get you through it if you allow him, if you see it that way. But he is yoked right next to you, taking you through it. And like he goes, okay, go at it. I'll meet you on the other side. You know, he's taking us through that. So it's he and me going through this together, and that helps me to go, he's that close to me right now. Right. He's that close.
That's what kind of struck me, too, I was saying earlier, is like he came to this earth, he died, he suffered, he went through just immeasurable discomfort so he could live in here. And this wasn't a really good place for him to live. And then as he brings me through my process, like he's still experiencing it and going through it. Wasn't there, I want to say it was one of the Rick Joyner books where someone encountered Jesus in the books, and then when he walked by, they saw that all of his wounds were still like laid open. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I don't know. I think there was something like that because it's like I'm still suffering. Like he's still going through it inside of us. Like we're going through it together. I mean, he's living in here. So he goes where we go and is facing what we face. It's like he's still hurting. Like he's realize how big of a sacrifice that is. To go move in a small space like this that isn't really pleasant to be inside of so that we could be redeemed for billions of people. To have that opportunity, I don't even think we can relate to that. Well, I'm going to close this in prayer, and I'm just going to play 10 minutes of that clip for you guys, and we'll call it a night. Lord, thank you for dying for us, for laying down your life, for suffering. And yet, you did it with joy, gladness inside of your heart, patient endurance, so that we could have the chance to have your Spirit living inside of us to redeem us, to create a place for us to live with you for eternity. And we are not the most pleasant people to be around, to live inside of without your Spirit. And yet you came anyways and decided to live inside of us and release your Spirit so we could have a chance. And yet, even sometimes we still don't take advantage of it, value it, revere it for what it is. And Lord, forgive us in any ways that we've done that. And God forbid that we make small little things into mountains because we're just too focused on self. Would you help us to grow, to mature, to overcome, and to step into the fullness of our destiny? And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.